Here we are. This is Pete Allen talking on behalf of the Carroll Foundation, and this is our blog number 5. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at some initiatives that can help keep our sport running, to help keep it sustainable. We've looked at a bunch of different things, and I'm very, very excited to have in front of me today Roei Ganzarski, who is the CEO of Magni-X, based in Seattle. They just recently took a maiden flight in a modified Cessna Caravan. So Roei, I wonder if you could give me, thank you very much for coming, if you could give me a little bit about the company history and your mission statement.
Sure. Hi, Pete. Thanks for having me. Magni-X is out to connect communities by enabling every person to fly in a clean, low-cost, all-electric aircraft. That's our goal. We started back in 2009 doing various R&D projects on electric motors. And in 2018, we pivoted the company to focus purely on electric aviation because we saw a huge gap. Aircraft today produce between 2 to 4% of worldwide CO2, and they are very expensive to fly. There's a reason your lift tickets are so expensive, just to climb up to 14,000 feet plus minus and then down. And so from that perspective, we're out to revolutionize the industry that hasn't changed basically since 1939 when the jet engine was introduced.
Whoa, that's an amazing mission statement. I know you have a lot of skydivers that are going to be right behind you, especially the ones that hopefully are going to start watching this. And it's very fortunate to be able to spread the news. So I've got a couple of questions for you. A couple of my friends who are caravan operators in skydiving have helped me out a little compile this list. How long did it take you to bring this idea from its conception to the flight a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of June?
Yeah, so if you think about the motor itself, again, the technology we started developing back in 2009. And so we didn't invent electric motors, right? Electric motors have been around for quite some time.
Sure.
What we were able to develop through a lot of time and hard work and effort was a design of an electric motor that produced so much power compared to the weight, turning at such low RPMs, which means you can connect it direct to the propeller without a heavy, expensive, maintenance-prone gearbox, that then we said, okay, this is really prone for aviation. And so from that perspective, it took us quite some time to get to the point where we could refocus the company to aviation. But the project itself, our first aircraft was the Beaver, a phenomenally old but wonderful aircraft.
Yeah.
That took 11 months from the day we said go until we actually flew, which is record-breaking in aviation. The Cessna Grand Caravan took us about 4 months from the second we said go until it was flying. So as we learn, the time progresses as well to get a lot faster.
So this sounds like something that was meant to happen, looking at those timescales right there as well.
It was. Someone was watching over us, and it was absolutely meant to happen.
Nice. And so, as you said, the electric engine is very light. And how did that affect the weight and balance of the Caravan, the existing Grand Caravan?
Yeah, so what we did, the electric motor is much smaller and much lighter. By the way, we like to use the term motor. Engines guzzle up gas and create a lot of emissions and smell. We like the term motor, cleaner, sleeker. And so what we did was basically put the motor as front in the nose as possible, and then added some weights up front in order to maintain the same center of gravity, because that was very important, right? We were trying to not change the flying characteristics for the pilot of the aircraft. And so we put everything as forward as possible, and that's how we maintain the center of gravity. So from a flying perspective, there's really no difference. What you do feel from our pilots that have been flying both the Beaver and the Caravan, and if anyone's ever driven an electric car, when you touch that gas pedal, my God, it flies, right? Same thing, we're getting the same feedback from the pilots. They take off faster, they climb faster. Electric motors are not impacted by altitude because they don't use air to produce the power, as opposed to an internal combustion engine that uses a mixture of fuel and air. So when you climb from 0 to 5,000 feet, to 10,000 feet, to 15,000 feet, the regular turbine engine loses its power. So the higher you go, the slower to get to altitude.
Yep.
The electric motor, no impact. It's the same power because it doesn't use air. So from that perspective, your climbs to jump altitude will be much faster. They'll be quieter because the only noise comes from the propeller. There'll be less vibration. They'll have no smell whatsoever. I'm a jumper myself, and I remember the smells walking towards the aircraft, sitting in the aircraft, just waiting for them to open that door so I could breathe some fresh air and jump out. And so from that perspective, all of that will disappear. And lift prices or ticket prices will go down because the electric aircraft is much cheaper to operate.
Well, I mean, as a skydiver, I have to pretty much like embrace everything you said, apart from the smell. There's something about that smell that a lot of skydivers do not want to take out of it. It kind of triggers it. But I think we can change when we're looking at everything else we're gaining from that.
And I'm sure we can arrange some sort of smell sticker that you can put on and kind of get that sensation.
Like the noise that they put in a Tesla, just so you can hear it coming. Very cool. So that kind of, it really answers the next question as well with regards to weight and balance for skydiving. It doesn't alter that whatsoever.
Not at all. From a pilot's perspective and a passenger, it's exactly the same.
All right, good. So next question, Roei. What are the current and then projected flight hours prior to a recharge? And I'm going to just carry on with this question a little bit and extend it. Are the batteries quickly and easily exchanged? And what is the recharge time and also the positioning in the aircraft, just so that for access to it?
Yeah, no, really good question. So the questions of batteries are still in development on multiple fronts. First of all, batteries are not as good as we would like them to be, right? And there's a good reason. There was never demand for that. If you look 8 years ago, there were no batteries that were powerful enough for a car until Tesla came along and said, hey, marketplace, we're developing an electric car, we need batteries. And once it became real, suddenly all the battery companies followed suit. And just this week, Tesla announced a 400-mile car, which is unbelievable, right? 8 years ago, no one would have ever believed it. The same thing is going to happen with aviation. Initially, the batteries that we have, which are good batteries from cars, but not good enough for airplanes, will take an aircraft like a Caravan about 100 miles plus a required reserve. Not record-breaking at all, but it's a start. As more and more electric aircraft start to fly, just like more and more cars started to take to the roads, more battery companies are showing interest in being part of this revolution. So the battery technology will come. The second is that today the charging, if you use a traditional fast charger, a 50 kilowatt charger, it's about a 1-to-3 ratio. You fly for an hour, you charge for 3 hours. Clearly not optimal for skydiving, right? Because you want to just go up and down on a regular basis. But an hour up and down plus 3 hours of charging, livable. If you use a supercharger, like what you would find on a Tesla or in any one of the electric car dealerships, which is about 400 to 500 kilowatts, you're looking at about a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 hour of flying, 1 hour of charging. Or you look at it differently, 20 minutes of flying, 20 minutes of charging. Now that becomes, when you start to look at it that way, pretty reasonable. 10, 20 minutes of taking jumpers up and down, 10, 20 minutes of charging on the ground while you're doing a changeover. So from that perspective, it could be a lot more attractive. Now you do need a supercharger for that, which are available, but it is an investment. In terms of where the batteries are, there's a few elements still to be designed. One idea is the cargo pod, right? Fill that cargo pod with batteries, and then that lends itself to potentially being swappable. Yep. Right? Right now, the cargo pods, while they're modular, they're not really easily taken in and out. So we would have to modify that cargo pod to make it easier to take in and out. Another option is in the wings. The wings already carry the weight of fuel, so there's a potential to put them in the source of the wings as well. So there's still about 2 years to go to really investigate and implement these elements inside a Caravan or Beaver or any other aircraft.
Fantastic clarity on that. Thank you. So my skydiving, my pilot friend, he did ask me another question about the de-icing system. He said you would know about it because the difference between a regular Caravan, and maybe you could dive into that a little bit for me and unpack it.
Yeah, so flying, there's two aspects. One, flying into known ice, which for the most part, skydiving aircraft don't do, right? You don't want to throw jumpers out when you know they're being iced. Anecdotally, I jumped once in the winter and my two hands literally started to have ice on them. And I was in a situation where I was almost ready to open my reserve because I couldn't actually grab on to my monkey ball. But overcame that and so on. So you usually don't want to go into known icing conditions. In terms of what happens if suddenly icing happens, there are today electric de-icing systems being developed. The 787 started that when it went to all electric de-icing, and other aircraft are already following suit. So there are ways to do de-icing all electrically, in which case the electric aircraft can solve that. So today it's not prevalent because there was never a need, but that's changing now.
Yeah, I mean, he operates caravans from Northern Europe, so I'm sure he's thinking about ferry flights and things like that as well.
Right.
Okay, I think you may have answered the next question, which was on the cost of the thing. I mean, you said the running cost is going to come down and down, but maybe you can highlight on the actual cost of an aircraft such as the Caravan for skydivers.
Yeah, so the aircraft, of course, because it's an existing aircraft, it's the same price as the aircraft itself, right? So you buy a Caravan for today anywhere between $750,000 US to $2.5 million, depending on what you're getting, fixtures, etc. And then you have the conversion price. Now, we're not yet priced on the conversion. Again, we have about a year and a half to decide that. We expect to be certified by the end of 2021, so we still have a bit of time to finish up all these details, for example, of exactly where we put the batteries, how we're going to price it. But from a pricing perspective, what we've looked at is a 5-year lifespan. And our expectation is, not that there's a 5-year lifespan on the motor, but if you take a 5-year operating schedule, you buy an internal combustion engine, install it on the aircraft, fly it for 5 years, including fuel costs, maintenance costs, oil costs, service costs, downtime, etc., overhaul of the internal combustion engine, etc. And then you compare that to what your 5 years with an electric version will be. We expect it to be lower by at least 50%. Now, how that's calculated into price, do you pay more upfront? Do you pay more per operating or pay less per operating? What the exact model is, we still have to determine. But overall, of the lifespan or operating lifespan of these aircraft, we're looking at least 50% lower.
Fantastic. So we're looking at something that's it's a real possibility for skydiving operations.
Oh, absolutely. I don't just think it's a real possibility. I think this will be one of the most revolutionary aspects of skydiving. It reduces operating costs tremendously, and so more people can have access to it. You can jump more times. Second is your climb to altitude will be faster, and your descent will be faster. Right now, the nosedive descent is limited by the ability of that engine not to overheat as it's diving down. With an electric motor, you don't have that challenge. In fact, you're nosediving and you're regenerating some of the battery. And so from that perspective, there are huge advantages to skydiving. Now, skydiving won't be the first market. I think, as we all know, skydiving clubs are not the richest in the world and don't have a lot of spare cash to spend. So I don't know that they'll be the first movers of this technology, but they're definitely going to follow suit.
Especially being a skydiver yourself, I'm sure you're pretty keen to see this thing enter the skydiving world. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm just thinking of the opening of that door and hearing nothing, because almost like jumping out of a hot air balloon, right? The noise you'll hear at the jump level and jump speed is going to be very low, almost like a fan. I think it'll be an incredible experience.
You got chills. I mean, going up and down my spine right now. I mean, I've been jumping for 42 years. I have over 34,000 jumps.
Wow.
And I've been questioning why I'm still skydiving due to the technology and the lack of sustainability about it. And now you guys bring something like this. I've suddenly seen a whole new future ahead of me in the sport. So
that is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to add today?
No, I think we're covered. Just blue skies and gentle winds.
Nice one, Roy. When did you last jump?
Oh, it was quite some years ago. Okay. After a couple hundred jumps, kids came around, work came around, and the jump club that I jump at here in Seattle moved about an hour further away from the 2 hours it was already. And so that kind of slowly dwindled my life away. I'm hoping that actually electric aircraft will revive that, because I have a dream in which I will jump out of our first electric aircraft. And so I'm trying to see how I revive that element.
As the CEO, Roei, I think you can make that happen. You have that. Roei, so thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and guys, thank you very much for listening to the Foundation's blog. What an amazing amount of information from Roei there. We all look forward to the first jumps from the electric Caravan. If you have any feedback on what you heard today on some of the other initiatives that we've been talking about, please get in touch with us. We'd like to share it more within the skydiving community. Thank you very much for watching.